Yeah, everything's fast. But also, most things are, well, everything's okay. If you do heroin once in a time, like, you just
Here he stands, arms bound, his fate sealed. There is no cunning that can undo the noose that hangs before him. Nowhere to run, no mat behind which to hide, and no weapons with which to parry the orchestrators of this ending. Justice, or so it seems. He stands now before the gallows with neither weapon nor disguise to shelter him from what awaits. The cloth that once concealed his face has long since been removed, exposing not the monster spoken of in taverns and fearful whispers, but merely a man. He would lift his head and stare at the noose, creaking and hanging with the movements like a medal swinging in the air. There is nowhere left for him to run now, nowhere left to hide, no horse to carry him into the darkness, no forest thick enough to swallow his crimes, and no clever trick capable of loosening the knot that waits patiently for his neck. The crowd gathers not to witness a legend, but an ending. Yet, as he stares upon the noose, memories begin to stir within him like ghosts awakened from shallow graves. His mind drifts backward through smoke and rain, towards the time before he became known as the Black Thorn Highwayman, before fear carried the same father than honor ever had. He had not begun as a villain. In truth, his beginnings were painfully ordinary. He was born into a life so plain and forgettable that even he struggled to recall much of it. No wealth, no title, no great destiny carved out for him by noble blood. Only muddy roads, grey skies, and the quiet desperation shared by men who know their lives will likely amount to very little. It was this fear of insignificance that drove him towards the army, or at least offered opportunity. A sword in hand seemed worth more than empty pockets and wasted years. And so he fought beneath the colours of kings, dressed in blue cloth stained darker by rain and blood. He marched across foreign soil with honor at his hip and ambition burning fiercely in his chest. The battlefield hardened him quickly. Cannon fire drowned out mercy, as smoke swallowed innocence whole. And yet, even amid such savagery, there remained something within him, much softer, that refused to die completely. During one fierce battle, amidst screams and steel and bodies collapsing into mud, he found an enemy soldier before him, dressed with the yellow colours of the opposing side. Their blades met violently, until at last the younger soldier fell to his knees, utterly defeated. One strike would have ended him there and then. The battlefield demanded death, expected even. Yet something within the young soldier faltered. Instead of delivering the final blow, he lowered his weapon and spared the enemy, where countless others would not have hesitated. It was an act almost foolish in a world ruled by violence, but one he carried quietly within himself thereafter. Word of his skill spread quickly through the regiment. He fought fiercely, commanded effectively, and carried himself with the confidence of a man desperate to prove his worth. Before long, medals were placed around his neck, and finer garments draped across his shoulders. At last, he had climbed above the miserable life from which he came. Honor appeared to wrap itself around him like golden thread. But pedestals are dangerous places upon which to stand. Those elevated above others often discover how visible they become when the world begins searching for someone to blame. As an officer, he found himself surrounded not by courage, but by pride disguised as patriotism. Orders were issued by men who viewed soldiers as numbers rather than souls, and victories were measured in land gained rather than lives lost. One evening, Amidst maps spread across a crowded war tent, her command arrived at Chelsea more deeply than any battlefield ever had. His regiment was to march upon a heavily fortified position before dawn, despite the certainty that many would never survive the attempt. He understood immediately what such an order truly meant. It was not a strategy, it was a slaughter. For the first time in his military career, hesitation overtook obedience. He argued fiercely against the command, for when he dared attack them as meant to needless deaths. But those above him cared little for caution, when glory remained within reach. Pride deafened them to reason. When the battle finally came, the world erupted into chaos. Alarms screamed through the darkness. Gunfire tore through the smoke. And soldiers dressed in blue collapsed one after another into blood-soaked earth. He watched boys scarcely old enough to shave die beneath explosions they never even saw coming. Unable to stomach the massacre any longer, he ordered a retreat against direct command, dragging what remained of his men away from certain destruction. Yet mercy and compassion are often mistaken for weakness by those who have forgotten humanity. Rather than being praised for saving lives, he was condemned for disobedience. His medals were torn from him, his rank stripped away before his fellow officers. The honor he had fought so hard to earn vanished within moments, leaving only disgrace in his place. And thus, the soldier became a prisoner of poverty once more. He was sent to the workhouse, where the days blended together in endless repetition. Gone were the banners and drums of war. Now his world consisted only of sweeping dust across cold stone floors beneath dim and miserable light. Morning became night, and night became morning with unbearable sameness. Each passing day seemed designed solely to grind away whatever identity he still possessed. He had survived battlefields only to become a ghost amongst the living. One storm-ridden night, where thunder shook the heavens and rain battered against the walls like fists demanding entry, something within him finally broke free. He abandoned his broom, forced his way beyond the doors, and stepped to the downfall like a man reborn. Rain washed across his face as though cleansing years of bitterness from his skin. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he tasted freedom again. But freedom without purpose is dangerous. The road soon welcomed him into another life entirely. A pistol found its way into his hand, placed there by his circumstance as much as desperation, and the former soldier disappeared into the shadows of the countryside. And in his place emerged the black fawn highwayman. At first, it seemed almost simple. A lone traveler halted upon a darkened road, frightened at surrendering coin and valuables beneath the threat of steel and gunpowder. Then another followed, and another after that. Stories spread quickly of the masked rider who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as swiftly into the night. Some call him a criminal, others a folk devil, or from unrest and injustice. Yet behind the bandana remained the same man who had once spared an enemy soldier upon a battlefield. It was during one final robbery that fortune abandoned him completely. A wealthy lady became his target on the road of the once busy streets. Fear overcame her instantly. She surrendered her possessions with trembling hands. He aimed a gun at the lady, but in one fatal moment, he missed his target. The bullet fired off with a thunderous boom and whizzed past the horses, causing them to leap up and rattle the carriage. Then loud neighs caused him to drop his gun. This would then lead the nearby officer, who was trailing late, directly to him. Before he could escape, he was seized and dragged away in chains. The legend ending not with glory or violence, but with a single careless mistake. And so the memory fades, returning once more to the gallows, where the rope still waits patiently before him. The crowd sees only a thief, an outlaw deserving of punishment. Yet perhaps there is more to a man than the worst things he has done. For somewhere upon another battlefield, long after the former captain had fallen into disgrace, Mercy survived because of him. That wounded man fought for the very regiment the former captain had once commanded. Death stood only a heartbeat away from killing him, and yet the blade never fell. Mercy, taught years before amidst mud and blood and smoke, was returned at last. Thus even now, with the noose tightening and death approaching steadily, perhaps some fragment of goodness remains behind him in the world. Perhaps kindness echoes farther than cruelty after all. The rope is finally placed around his neck. He lifts his head one final time toward the darkened sky above, breathing deep as though trying to hold on to life for one last fleeting moment. The wind moves gently through the silence. The crowd waits, and then, at the end of all things, the black fawn Highwayman meets his fate, not as a legend, nor as a monster, but simply as a man who wants you mercy in a merciless world.